Hello everybody, this is Marcus Cruz for JoshuaCasper.com, and what you were just listening to was a short piece of music I composed on behalf of Unfiltered Audio and their new Distortion and Saturation plugin Indent 2, which is the smaller brother of Dent 2 and is available for purchase separately or is included for free with every purchase of Dent 2. Be sure to follow the link below for more information and make sure you stick around to the end of the video so I can show you the completed song that we saturated and we distorted using Indent 2. Let's take a closer look. Indent 2 has 10 different styles of clipping and 2 clipping stages to choose from that can be described as the hard clipping of digital to the soft clipping of analog and the futuristic of wavefolding. There is a highly resonant multi-mode filter, which includes a low pass, high pass, band pass, and band reject filter. There is a fully patchable modulation system that includes 6 types of modulation, including sine, saw, triangle, and square LFOs, an input follower to sidechain any parameter to the audio, a macro control that will simultaneously control one or more parameters, sample and hold noise, a step sequencer to step through a sequence of parameters, and built-in integration for Rolly Light Pad. Modulation can be patched to any parameter and can even modulate other modulators, which we will look at in greater depth throughout the video. Finally, there are 46 presets to choose from that are either light saturation, filtering, experimental, or full distortion. We will look at these in greater depth throughout the video. I've soloed out a portion of our bass track and I'd like to experiment with some of the presets. There are 46 in total. Let's head over to our preset banks and select Light, Distorted Amp. I'm going to bring the mix down to 0 so that we're only hearing the dry sound. And as we're listening along, I'll slowly bring the mix back up to 100%. It's important to note that automatic gain compensation is turned on, which matches the wet amplitude signal to the dry signal and maintains a constant level. Our in control or input gain adds gain going into the filter. It can be used to create saturation, overdrive, distortion, or wavefolding, depending on the clipping method you choose and the amount of gain. Let's put the mix back at 0 and we will take a listen. Out or output gain occurs after the filter and is a good way to add back harmonics that may have been lost by using the cutoff. Let's take a listen to this. Let's head back to our preset banks and take a look at Experimental Violent Bubbler. This preset demonstrates the feature-rich modulation capabilities of Indent 2. We have 2 LFOs, a red one and a blue one. The red LFO is set to a sine wave and is connected to the cutoff frequency of a bandpass filter. The blue LFO is set to a sine wave and is connected to the mix. The blue LFO is also modulating the frequency of the red LFO. So what we have is intermodulation between our modulators. Let's take a listen to how this sounds. Let's head back to our preset banks and take a look at Full Distortion Drum Scratcher. Our modulation is set to an input follower, which is side changed to our cutoff frequency of our bandpass filter. The in and out gain are both set high, with the in gain clipping method being overfold and the out gain clipping method being distortion. I will bring the mix down to 0 and then slowly bring it up so that we can hear the difference between the dry and wet signal. I will also play with the amplitude and the output of the input follower to see what effect this has on our signal. I've soloed our hi-hat track and I'd like to build a unique patch for it using Indent 2. The first thing I'd like to do is set the mix at 0 so that we're only hearing the dry sound. As you can hear, the hi-hats are playing a 16th note pattern. I'd also like to assign a macro control to the mix and trim controls, which will control them simultaneously. So let's head over to our modulation and select Sine LFO and change this to macro control. I take the first output of our macro and connect it to the input of mix. And then I take our second output of macro and connect it to the input of trim. Select a positive polarity for the mix, which is clockwise, and a negative polarity or anti-clockwise for the trim. This will mean that they move in opposite directions as we move the amplitude knob of the macro control. Now I will increase the input and output gain and select an analog clipping method, tape. Now I can adjust my macro control to bring the mix up while keeping the output level consistent, turning trim down. Next, let's assign a step sequencer. I'm going to select our second modulator, select Sine LFO, and then step sequencer. Let's assign the output of the step sequencer to the input of the cutoff frequency of our low pass filter and bring down the cutoff. Let's take a listen to our dry signal and I'll turn up the macro control so that we can hear the wet signal. Now I can draw in my steps and select the tempo. I'll select dotted eighth notes to add some syncopation. This is synced to my DAW. I'll also increase the amplitude so that it has a greater effect. I want to change the direction of the step sequencer to reverse. Now, let's add some randomization. Click the plus sign to add another modulator. I'm going to select LFO and then sample and hold noise in our new modulator. I want to assign this from the output to the input of the resonance of our filter. I'm going to increase the amplitude so that it has a greater effect. And I'd like to control the frequency manually, so I click the button that resembles two eighth notes. It is changed to HZ. or hertz. It is no longer tempo synced, and I can control the speed manually. Finally, let's sidechain our input and output gain to an input follower. Click the plus sign to add another modulator and select input follower. Connect both outputs to the input of input gain and output gain. I'll turn up the amplitude so that it has a greater effect. Let's A/B between the dry and wet signal using our macro control. Indent 2 is the plugin for you if you are looking for a natural sounding, feature-rich digital distortion. Its unique signal path allows you to shape and manipulate your sound from saturation reminiscent of old analog gear, or you can completely destroy the dry signal using Unfiltered Audio's 10 different clipping algorithms. Thank you all for watching, and if you like this video, hit the like button below, share it with your friends, and be sure to subscribe. I'm going to leave you with the opening song that has been distorted using Indent 2. I've used the preset on the lead trumpet in parallel, called Screaming Square from Full Distortion. Keep a lookout for my next video on Indent 2 to hear part 2 of the song.